All right. Hey there, U.S. historian. Sorry, I'm at my son's football practice, so I'm going to do my best here. So today we're going to talk about the War of 1812, which is the Second War of Independence. Okay. So you can see on the left here, we're going to be at war with the British again. Okay. Now, some of the causes of the war. So the Brits and the French are at war again. Okay. And George Washington, remember his whole idea of like American neutrality, avoid entangling alliances. But we're still trying to kind of have it both ways, right? We're trying to trade with both the Brits and the French. And so the British start blockading our trade with France. Okay. Not only that, though, okay, they start impressing our sailors. So what the heck does that mean? Okay. So they are essentially kidnapping American sailors and forcing them to work on British ships. So why is that called impressment? Okay, literally what they're doing is they're like, okay, we're taking you prisoner. We're gonna take a coin, force it into your hand, like press it into your hand, and like we're paying you now. You're a member of the British Navy. Okay. So really what they're doing, they don't respect American sovereignty anymore. They're like, nope. Okay, we don't recognize your citizens as a different nation. You're a member of the British Navy now. Okay. In addition to that, they're supporting native resistance against the United States. Okay. So Tecumseh is one of those leaders that they're helping fund along the frontier. Because remember, like part of the agreement of the Treaty of Paris of 1783, when we essentially signed the end of the American Revolution, was that they were going to remove their troops from the frontier, and they don't remove them from some of these forts. And so they're kind of like helping Native Americans here stir up resistance. Okay. Now, this war is going to be a little bit like divisive in the United States. The House of Representatives, they see this as an opportunity to kind of expand into Canada. Okay. So Henry Clay, you don't have to know like almost any congressman throughout American history, but Henry Clay's the exception. He's going to pop up a ton throughout to this unit. Okay. So he's like, wait. Okay. I see this as an opportunity to like expand territory into Canada. Okay. He thinks because Canada is a colony of Great Britain that they're going to want to rebel, okay, against their colonizers. So a war hawk is a term you need to know. It's going to pop up a bunch of times throughout history. So war hawks and doves. So the war hawks are those that want to like go to war against the Brits. They want the British to stop aiding natives, and they want the Brits out of Canada. Okay, and so you're going to see a division in this war. So James Madison, he's president at this time. Okay, so the Democratic Republicans, that's the party of James Madison, they're primarily for this war. Okay, now the Federalists, they're, as you can see, totally in opposition to this war. Okay, now this war takes place all over the place, and that's why it's so confusing. Okay, so you can see it takes place along the Atlantic because of like impressment of American sailors. It takes place along the Great Lakes because it pushes into Canada and along the frontier. Okay, but it also takes place along kind of the Chesapeake by like Washington D.C., and I'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so this is kind of a disastrous defeat for the United States. It's like embarrassing. So the Brits are going to march into the nation's capital, and they have orders to destroy everything. Okay, so this is actually one of kind of those famous like stories where James Madison like flees the capital, and his wife Dolly Madison is like, "Hold on, like we have a ton of like important documents from our nation's history that we need to save." Right, so like the Declaration of Independence, the American Constitution, like the official portrait of George Washington, and she orders all that to be like removed because sure enough, like the British set fire to everything, right? The Capitol building, the Treasury building. Now they don't call it the White House at the time; it's called the Executive Mansion. Okay. Now, other things, right, is the bombardment of Fort McHenry. Okay. So Francis Scott Key, okay, he's like kind of trying to kind of negotiate a treaty because the Brits are outside of Baltimore and they're preparing a siege of Baltimore. Okay. And first, the Brits are going to bombard the fort on this island, right? And so they bombard the fort of Fort McHenry. And Francis Scott Key, he's watching it from this boat. And so he writes kind of this like song about it, right? The Star Spangled Banner, right? And so he just can't believe, right? The bombs bursting in air, right? That this flag was still there. This is the flag, right? I took a picture of this. Well, I'm trying to remember if I took a picture of this, and you're not technically not allowed to because of like preservation of the flag, right? This is in trying to remember the specific museum, but it's in DC. Okay. So why does all this matter? Why do we need to know the War of 1812? So I'd be sure to write these things down. Okay. Number one. Okay. One, we survived this war, right? So it's kind of debatable who wins this war, but Americans feel like they won this war because we are here to stay. Okay. Even though our capital is like taken over and destroyed for a period of time, we survive, right? It was kind of debatable whether or not the United States was going to survive as a democracy. So we go to toe with the Brits, and again, we're not destroyed. Okay. So that's number one. Okay. Number two. Okay. Because we feel like we win, there's a surge of patriotism and pride in America after this. Okay. So that's number two. Okay. So like national unity. Number three, why there's so much national unity is because there's only one political party. Okay. The Democratic Republicans. The Federalists disappear because they're the ones that oppose the war. Okay. They fold. They cease to exist in any relevance as a political party. Okay. And then number four, because of the embargo that was pushed initially by Jefferson, okay, that said, hey, we're not going to trade. And because the Brits were blockading us and we weren't able to get manufactured goods, we started developing our own, right? Our own manufacturing. And so we start industrializing in what becomes known as the market revolution. Okay. So those are the key things we need to know about the market revolution. We'll leave it there for right now. Remember to stay awesome. Talk to you later, guys.